Welcome back to the channel, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you had a wonderful Thursday. Today, I have for you my Game Week 8 team selection, and alongside that, my prospective transfer plans for Game Weeks 9, 10, and 11. But not just that, I also have for you my captaincy and where it's landed, and you will see if I have gone for a hat-trick of differentials following Salah and Saka's success. Before we jump into the video, if you could consider subscribing, that would be absolutely magnificent. Again, about 50% of the watch time is coming from non-subscribed individuals, and I would really appreciate if you hit that button as we get closer to 4,000 subscribers. Not too far away now, we're making good progress, so I really appreciate that. And without anything else needing to be said, let's get into the video. Starting with my goalkeeper, Matt Sels. Is he even going to turn up? Well, I've just done some research before I hopped onto the video. And not only do official FPL have him at 75%, but Ben Dinnery, for those of you who know him in the community, also has him at 75% of playing. Realistically, even if he isn't, am I going to be selling him for 1 week when he should be back for the next? No, probably not. If he misses out, then so be it. Playing with 10 isn't ideal, but it is what it is. In terms of just his fixtures overall, assuming that he does start, I mean, 3 out of the next 4 being at home, and they're pretty decent. He has Ipswich in 13, where you look Arsenal in 12, Ipswich in 13. 12 isn't obviously ideal, but then you look to offload in 14 when the really, really bad run for Forest starts. Overall, I've been really happy with him. I mean, you saw against Chelsea, right? They made too many chances for my liking in terms of my clean sheet prospects in comparison to what I would like for my save potential. But nonetheless, he was equal to pretty much all of it, apart from one of Madueke strikes, which found the net. Now, going forward, all of the other sides he's going to play in the next 4. Well, they're not going to have the same shot volume. They're not going to have the same chance volume, especially big chance volume, as Chelsea did. And therefore, I can especially see, given that they are at home, Sels picking up maybe even 2 clean sheets. And even if he gets 1, I could definitely see a haul or a clean sheet and then some other performances with a high volume of saves. So I'm really, really happy with him. And he's still a goalkeeper that I really, really like. Right, away from the boring category, as I always say. And here we have the defense. Now, in terms of Gabriel, I honestly wouldn't be surprised if Bournemouth score. And I honestly don't mind too much when you see my midfield, because, of course, I own Semenyo. But not only that, a lot of engaged managers now have double Arsenal defense. It's not too much, and it's a small percentage in terms of the entire game, but there's still enough engaged managers who have that. They have Raya and Gabriel. They'll have a Saliba, but predominantly Raya. And for those reasons, when the Arsenal clean does get wiped, I know that Gabriel, for example, at my rank is about 36% EO. When you take into account Raya and Saliba, you have to add another 30% for that. So realistically, there's only 34% worth of upside for a clean sheet. It's 4 points. I'm only getting like 1.33 points as a result of that. So it's not the biggest deal in the world, especially when more of the engaged managers that I'm really competing against do have double Arsenal defense. I think he's the biggest goal threat in the league, box threat in the league from set pieces, and every single game I am optimistic of getting a goal from him. But I wouldn't be too sure of Arsenal keeping a clean sheet and backing on that, given that when you go away to Bournemouth, as I've said so many times, it is a hard place to go. Not only can they dispossess you high with their aggressive high press, but they've also got quality, especially within Semenyo, and they're fairly well coached. I think I would like to see some more established patterns of play. I would like more of a creative in that number 10 role as well to kind of take him to that next level. But Evan Nilsson looks like he's getting better, and Semenyo is obviously their big threat. So I expect Arsenal to win. I just think that Bournemouth could score. Bardio is interesting because, as was pointed out to me, Matthias Cunha actually played on the right side against Liverpool. And if he's to do that again, then that's going to be down Gvardiol's flank. And then Rico Lewis probably could play. And even if he doesn't, maybe Walker does. But Gvardio has to play a little bit more defensive to cover for not Ainori, for Cunha. So I'm not exactly sure what role he's going to play. However, I do think that Lewis is going to be bench, and hopefully, or at least he won't play fullback, and hopefully he is the more attacking out of the fullbacks, even if he is to have Cunha down his flank. As you'll see in the transfer plan section, I'm not as keen as I once was, for reasons we shall discuss. Now, one thing you will notice with this bench order is I've had Harry Winks above Lewis Hall, or in front of Lewis Hall, quite often this season. This isn't the case now. I have Lewis Hall in front, and the reason is, it wouldn't really matter because I have to play a back 3 anyway. But if Konsa is to miss out, then I would like Lewis Hall to come into the side. Honestly, I just realized now that I can't play it back 2, so you're just going to have to let me off with that. And I'm going to keep running with it. Because like I said, I like authenticity on this channel. Does Konsa play? Honestly, I don't know. I don't think so personally. I haven't I've been looking for an update and there hasn't been anything clear cut. I don't think he's going to play given the nature of the injury, and there's probably no reason to rush him back because I do think they're a bit light in defense, as I've spoken about in the past, especially in the right centre back, right back role. So for those reasons, if he misses out and I have to play Lewis Hall, do I think Brighton could score? Of course, but Newcastle is never an easy place to go, and I'm quietly confident I could potentially get an attacking return from Lewis Hall. He's kept a clean sheet away at Everton, where Lloyd Kelly easily could have played. So if he's being trusted there, I imagine he'll be trusted at home, and it's actually a decent prospect to own a fullback with some attacking quality for a fixture at home. So I'm okay with that. Some people will be saying, okay, but why don't you just sell Konsa? Because there are other good options. And talking about transfer plans, let's now get into it. Right, so this is a new transfer plans graphic. Let me know what you think. There are some other features that I will be adding dependent on the situation. So in game week 8, I am really looking to roll. There were other things that I was considering just going Semenyo to McNeil for this week, doubling on Everton, going after the upside, and targeting Ipswich away, Fulham at home, Southampton away in the short term. However, McNeil rose, and now that's not an option. And even if it was an option, I think maybe I'd take it. Maybe I would take it now if it was an option. But I am not upset about it because I very much like having 2 free transfers next. I think next week is really open to interpretation. I think a lot could happen this week, especially given it's the first week back after the international break. And having 2 frees, especially when Liverpool play Arsenal, I think is quite a nice comfort, at least to say. All right, now this is the main plan I have. We'll speak about the other things I'm thinking about. In game week 9, I would therefore like to sell Semenyo, move him to McNeil, and Konsa to Ait-Nouri. Now, in an ideal world, Konsa would become Ethan Pinnock, but I don't have the money because I quite literally have nothing in the bank, and McNeil costs 0.1 more than Semenyo. My reasoning for not getting on Ait-Nouri or preferring to get on Ait-Nouri in 9 is because I don't really see how they keep a clean sheet at Brighton away. So I'm really just looking at holding on for an attacking return. Whereas in 10, it's Palace at home. Whether it isn't in 11, it's Southampton at home. So given those 2 fixtures are at home, and both of those sides aren't as good going forward as Brighton, or even close, given what we've seen in the league so far, Southampton's a bit underrated going forward, to be fair. I think it would make a lot of sense. However, I currently don't have that luxury unless McNeil drops or ideally Semenyo scores against Arsenal and rises. I wouldn't mind keeping Konsa because I like the run from 12, but again, budget constraints. And if I didn't have him, I'd sell Lewis Hall, but like I said, budget constraints. This move is essentially facilitated by my conviction in keeping Mohamed Salah. When you look at my squad, you see Salah, Havertz, Haaland, and Saka, which a lot of people would say overkill, especially when I have Vardio and Gabriel as well. I'm playing DCL, a 4.5 keeper, a 4.5 defender, and 2 very cheap mids, which is essentially half the team. I'm okay doing that because I know that DCL could still come up trumps. The next 3 fixtures are very good, and the exit routes are good. I love having a 4.5 keeper. I've said from the start, I think that's optimal, and I'm not really shifting or budging on that. I don't mind Onana as an option, but I even said that's cool. But going past that to Raya, where a lot of people are gone, I'm not interested. I've spoken so much about having at least 1 cheap defender, and I'm probably going to downgrade Vardio, as you've seen, is optimal. And then Rodgers is someone I've got a little bit of value in. He's 90 minutes, which is a big thing in a very good side. So for me, that's pretty much set and forget. And there's so many good cheap mids this year. Smith Rowe, McNeil, Semenyo, where there's always an exit route that you have nothing in the bank. And they're actually doing well. So how can I complain? And it's fairly easy to justify the structure from that standpoint for myself. What else could I do in game week 9? Well, I could keep Semenyo. But for me, the big thing was something I've talked about in the past, the disparity in performance and threat of Bournemouth and Semenyo away from home and at home, and he's away to Villa. And then the other thing is, even after Manchester City, the next fixture's away. So I was just thinking, those 4 fixtures, I think it's Brentford away, those 4 fixtures, they're not that great, so I may as well move him on. I don't mind having him at Arsenal at home. I actually think it's a nice way to open up myself to some upside, because at the same time, I can dent the double Arsenal defense that other people have and cash in on the points that essentially created that. So that's my thinking with Semenyo. The other route I wouldn't mind is I would really like Brian Mbeumo, right? It doesn't really fit into my personal structure because where am I meant to get 1.9 million in cash? I was thinking about selling Havertz and maybe going to Cunha, but I still couldn't afford it. And do I really want to sell Havertz? No. Okay, what if I sell Vardio and Havertz? But then that requires a -4, and it's just a very, very difficult route to Brian Mbeumo. And the thing I'm holding on to is that Brentford still aren't, they're not, I wouldn't say they're a top 10 side in the league at the moment. And as a result, even when he plays well, I can see him blanking. For example, West Ham, he should have had a lot more. For example, at Wolves, he scored from a penalty, but from open play, there wasn't too much. And even when there was, he was sort of let down a bit by his teammates. And I know that could happen. He's obviously done so well so far, but in terms of being able to replicate this type of form for the next 7 games, well, he's scoring at what? He's got 51 points in 7 games, which is above 7 points per game. It's like 7.2. And as a result, if everyone's going to own him as well and he declines, it's quite a nice opportunity, I think, to capture some very hidden upside. So for that reason, I'm pretty set on these 2 moves in game week 9. I would really like to get Ethan Pinnock. I would really, really like to get Ethan Pinnock instead of Aït-Nouri, but like I said, I can't afford it. Then game week 10, I roll, and game week 11, I make these transfers. As you will see with the fixtures on the screen, they are for the specific week that I'm bringing them in. I'll sell Gvardiol because he will have Brighton away, and I think Brighton could definitely get at City, and it'll be a relentless game for City in terms of their defense. So for those reasons, fairly likely to concede, and then he has Spurs and Liverpool afterwards, right? And I would go and get De Ligt because 11 to 13, those 3 fixtures are really good for Man United. They include Ipswich and Leicester, I believe. I'm not sure what the other one is, but it was a green on the FDR when I checked. So it could be De Ligt or Dalot. The thing about De Ligt is he's got a lot of threat from set pieces. The way he's attacked that ball, obviously he's got his goal against Southampton as well, right? So for me, I really like the prospect of having another centre-back who's fairly cheap, obviously 5 million, being able to deliver a goal similar to Gabriel, and then that would provide the funds comfortably to go from DCL to Cunha. Now, the thing with DCL is I think I'm just going to keep him regardless of what he does, even if he misses 3 penalties against Ipswich, because Ipswich away, Fulham at home, Southampton away, I can't justify selling him when my structure is pretty rigid at the moment and transfers for me are few and far between. Fun fact, I have not rolled a transfer in about 6 months. Actually quite ridiculous when you think about it, especially as a content creator. But yeah, and the thing is, I actually had a pretty decent end last season. It wasn't enough to get the rank I would have liked, but it was a decent end. So for all of those reasons, I am very happy to keep DCL for the next 3 and just see how it goes. And then look, I've talked Cunha up so much. I would love to have him for Brighton away and then the fixture in 10, but I'll give DCL Southampton and we'll bring Cunha in for 11. And then that means we'll be on to game week 12. Now, I could wildcard. I could. But every day that goes by, every time I look at it, the less and less I want to do so because my team's actually pretty well set for it considering I have triple Arsenal. I'm not that interested in Cole Palmer compared to other people because it's Leicester away and Southampton away. But okay, in the same week, Salah has Southampton away when he has Leicester away. So do I really need him? My structure's really good. Part of me is genuinely thinking about wildcarding in 19 and just saving it and saving it and saving it as late as I possibly can. Or maybe I'll wildcard in like 15, 16, 17, should something crop up. And the third option, which is currently my most preferred, is quite literally just keeping it until an opportunity arises and just betting on the fact that it does. Because if it does, especially with so many people using their wildcards, especially because there's so many games and transfers will be tight and people are already gearing towards a certain type of squad, for example, the optimal one you would see for Game Week 12, that is a huge opportunity to be different from the crowd and have some downside protection because it should be fairly safe. And then course have the upside to go with. So that's probably my strategy as for now. And I wanted to give a little bit more time to this because I usually don't. And I hope that helped and you understand where my thoughts are at and what I think is maybe optimal strategy, especially with the wildcard for those who have it. And therefore, given we're rolling, this is the midfield. Now, you won't see the captaincy armband on Salah, but you also won't see it on Haaland initially because we're going to do the same thing as last time and I will reveal it at the end. Saka away at Bournemouth, people are like, oh, is he going to start? I think he'll start. Unless Arteta categorically says, no, he's not playing or he's injured. I think he plays because it didn't seem too bad. Even Lee Carsley said that it wasn't that big of a deal. And they were just protecting Saka, so that's cool. His prospects will always be good. If you look to my short, I encourage you to watch that had you not 4 things that you should learn from Game Week 7. His floor is, in my opinion, now the highest in the game, and therefore I'm never really worried in any game. And honestly, I think considering he's only got 2 goals, he could have easily had more this season, and he hasn't even had a penalty. So the prospects for him are looking really good. And touching on him, because some people are thinking of selling him, I just don't like this move. Because when you want him back for 12, when he's at 10, when you bought him at 10, or even 10-1, he's still underpriced by about 0.5 million. And as a result, I don't know how you can justify making your life harder, for example, going for like a Cole Palmer and having to downgrade elsewhere. Sure, you could go Son, but he's just coming back from injury and the role isn't still ideal. And there's a spread of output at Spurs. I would just keep Saka probably as a season keeper and just let him keep ticking along, ticking along. You don't really have to ever captain him. We've obviously binked when we got the 16 pointer last week, but we probably won't captain him again. Just let him tick along, and that 10 million with what he's providing, I think that's fair. It's a menu I've obviously spoken about. I like the fixture to an extent, considering what it is, more so in relative terms compared to other people. Rodgers, I think at this price, I'm just very accepting of the fact that I'm getting 90 minutes, and whilst I would love him to actually return, he's returned in what 2 of the last 3 games, and he got a haul in one of them. I think it's what 19 points in the last 3. That's great. Hopefully, he can get a return at Fulham away. They do give you a chance as well, and his position is one which is certainly well stationed to exploit that Fulham pivot, because I don't think that Sanderberg is going to play it this time around. I think Emil Smith-Rowe will come back into the side, so that's good. And with Salah, I obviously spoke in depth about him in the Everything You Need to Know video, and I would encourage you to watch that if you like to hear my thoughts. I think with Cucurella out, I think with Fofana out, I think with Chelsea's build-up and Liverpool's style of pressing, and just a general record in the Big Six games and given us at Anfield, I'm quite bullish on him this week, to say the least. Obviously, a lot of talk about DCL. I'm more than happy to be keeping him, as I said. Havertz obviously has a yellow flag as well. I think he'll be fine. I think it's a typical international break injury. We haven't really heard much, right? If Arteta comes out and says X, Y, and Z, who do I get? I don't even know, because Cunha obviously has City this week, but I would like him down the line. Solanke's obviously there, and I'd probably go for him, but I don't love it because he won't have penalties when back, and I'm a little bit concerned about his ceiling. So hopefully Havertz is fine, because I have no intention of selling him. If he's not, I'll just update you in my solving problems video. And then with Haaland, like I said, all the good prospects that he has for the obvious reasons, but there are some negatives which must be considered if Gary O'Neill is to adopt a different approach. And sides haven't found it that easy going to Molineux, Chelsea aside. So now let's find out where the captaincy lies this week, and if I've gone for a hat-trick of differentials. Genuinely, having the armband on Haaland this week was not my preference. And if you asked me this time yesterday, or even maybe like 5-6 hours ago, maybe even a couple hours ago, I would have told you I'm going Salah. However, I have a routine and a process that I go through every single game week to arrive at my final decision. Before I film this team selection video, I do 2 things in particular, 2/3 things. I'll just give you a bit of an insight into it. I don't imagine many other people do the second bit, but for me, it works well. And I've only adopted this from this season. First thing I do is I go and look at the models, and I will just see what they are thinking. I would have done that early in the week, but just to kind of clarify and have a non-biased friend to throw some ideas around with. What I use models for is primarily idea generation, not so much for them to tell me, oh, like Bruno Fernandes is a great buy, because I don't think he is, and no numbers on whatever spreadsheet are going to tell me that, but rather you give me a bunch of ideas and then I will consider them. Because of course I have blind spots and I'm not thinking about X, Y, and Z. I haven't considered all the variables, and that is what I use models for. And the most important part of it is I turn off all the lights and I just think. I literally, in a complete pitch black room, I just think about what I think the best moves are. And I go through things in a very methodical manner. And once I have done so, then I allow my intuition to kick. And for me, that's a very important part of the process to see where I land. I did it for the Salah captaincy, I did it for the Saka captaincy, and both times it essentially got me over the edge to go for Salah as captain, go for Saka as captain against Haaland. However, this time it was pretty close, but this time when it came to my intuition, it went the other way, and it went to Haaland. So I will not tell you that I'm captaining Haaland purely for football reasons, because I think Salah could genuinely be a very, very good option, if not better. But I am going with my gut this week, and my gut tells me to captain Haaland. And that is just being completely honest, as opposed to being like, oh, I'm captaining Haaland because this wall line and this block. And no, I am captaining Haaland because my gut got me there. Like I said, it was obviously a very close call, but it swayed me to the Haaland side. And that is just the honest story. And I encourage you to try that process of making a decision. It doesn't take particularly 20 minutes, 30 minutes. And it's very, very effective in my opinion. And also you have a lot of confidence in your decision, because at that point, the mind is still, you've pretty much done what you can. You've eliminated most biases. And I find it very, very useful. And it's also good for the body and mind in general. Before I deliver the classic line, just a fun fact. Walt Disney actually used to use the exact same process and use the same process in building Disneyland. He used to turn off all the lights. Other very famous inventors have done this as well, but he used to turn off all the lights and imagine Disneyland. Then after maybe an hour of imagining, he would then go and draw the sketch. So I'm just trying to replicate somewhat of a similar process, given it has worked for some of the greats and very successful men in the past. And just in general, a few things I've done before aren't too dissimilar to that. And that is all she wrote for today. I hope you enjoyed it. I certainly did. I enjoyed looking at the transfer plans with the new graphics and also delivering some more depth there. I spent some more time researching and planning what I was going to do this week specifically for that, and I enjoyed it. So I hope it was of some value to you. I hope you learned from my decision-making process as well. And I shall see you tomorrow for solving your problems. In the meantime, if you could consider subscribing, I would be very, very grateful, especially to the half of you that haven't done so already. And like I said, I shall see you tomorrow. Make sure to make it a great day. Goodbye.